Well, happy 2023, everybody. Hope everybody had a good holiday off. I know there's a lot of upgrades going on and things like that. Take time to do those things when people are away so you can get them completed. But I also hope that you had some time with family and friends. I'm Paul Pedron. I'm product manager at ZENworks Service Desk, and we're doing ZENcast Live today. We're going to do a little bit of ZSD getting started. We've done this before. I have a little bit different format this time. But this next ZENcast, we're going to do the upgrade to ZCM 2020 Update 3. So hope you can join us for that. What is ZENcast Live? We meet every first and third Tuesday at 9 o'clock Mountain Time in North America, and we basically are here to take your ideas, try and put them to the test, and be able to answer any questions that you have. So I hope you're doing well. Please log into chat, and you'll be able to um, give us some feedback and some questions, and maybe how you're doing things, so that we can let the other ZENworks admins know. So this is really for ZENworks admins, for the ZENworks community, and or anybody interested in ZENworks. What does it do? How does it function? Those types of things. We're here to answer those questions. So we're glad you're here. We're going to get started. You can always go to our page. We do have a page that has all the different um, ZENcasts on them. So you can see here we have all the Micro Focus products here. But if we go to IM and G, you'll see that we have the ZENcasts, and then if they pertain to a particular product, we'll throw them in the product as well. So you'll be able to get back to them also if you missed one or are investigating something. Let's do a little bit of house cleaning. Please subscribe so that you can get the links and chat with us and be involved. If you're watching this recording, put in comments, put in likes if you like it, dislikes if you like it. We want to make sure this content is growing with you. Best viewing is audio 720p 60, and then we do post the videos, the links, and the references that you have in chat will also be in the videos, the comment section, once we have it posted about 10 minutes after we conclude this session. So again, thank you for being here. We're going to recap a little bit. Last time we did a little bit, it was end of the year. We were trying to take it light. We're looking back and looking forward on what ZENworks has, what the ZENcast can provide for you, and so forth. One of the things that we did mention is that there is a monthly UEM webinar that's coming up on the third Thursday of the month. So that's going to be throughout 2023. So you can be able to get into those webinars. They'll be conducted by our SEs that are in the field. So they're right in the middle of what customers are looking for, looking at, wanting, and so forth. So if you go out to this particular page, you can actually register for them. That's on a GoToMeeting. And you can see here we have January 19th as the first one, and we'll be going through the end of the year for those sessions. So be sure to register for that. You'll get notified. You'll get out some precursors. It has a little bit different format than what we have here as far as presentation and notifications. So be sure to do that. With that being mentioned, we're going to stick with ZENcast first and third Tuesdays. We're just kind of seeing if that will still be fulfilled or if it's too much. We may, since they're going to be the third Thursday, we might cancel our third Tuesday for ZENcast, but we'll see. We got a few months. We're going to try this. We want to get your feedback on that, so let us know. 2022 releases. You could see that we released ZENworks configuration management in the unified endpoint management and protection space. 2022 update 3. ZENworks Service Desk, we released 8.3.0 and 8.3.1, and hybrid workspaces we released those for as well. Last time we took a little bit of look at some roadmaps, some ZSD lookbooks, and ZCM lookbooks. There are TIDs out there we covered, and some upgrade cookbooks as well. So be sure to check those out. We also have those how-to videos under the Micro Focus support and training. So if we were to look here, we could see that we do have some upgrades and stuff that you can easily get to understand how to do that for your product. The other thing is make sure you check on the community. There are discussions that can be had. Other administrators will put in the discussions, and you can have some feedback how you're doing it, or you can put in your ideas exchange, or you can put in questions out there. This one isn't coming up as quick. I'm wondering why that isn't coming up. There's also tips and info. If you need to get to the lookbook page, you can always go to the lookbook page through the service desk. Let me see if I can select it. It's having a hard time today. Version currency. You can always get to the lookbook and see what's going on. The nice thing about the lookbook is it's a quick reference to different areas like service desk at a glance, our feature comparison charts, how and why, and so forth. All right, so the community pages are very valuable. Be sure to keep checking on those, as well as the ideas pages. We're going to be having in 840 a lot of different requests that have come in over some time to be able to see those in the product for service desk. And this is our feedback from you, another form of feedback from you, to be able to see what you're doing and what you need in the product, what you're expecting in the product, and so forth. All right. Well, let's get started. Today's agenda, we're going to be getting started into ZENworks Service Desk. As you know, or you may not know, that if you own any portion of ZENworks, you have at least 2 licenses of ZENworks Service Desk, so that you can kick the tires, set it up, see if it's a ticketing system that works for you. You can work it across different areas like facilities, maintenance. You can put it across IT computers, HVAC, maybe a motor pool, managing a motor pool. You can do all of those things with Service Desk, and you don't need a separate Service Desk for each department. You can do them all within Service Desk. So being able to do that is quite flexible and makes it quite versatile. Okay. Again, we looked at the ZSD lookbook. There is documentation out here, and these links also will be in the presentation that I put in. I'll put it in the presentation in the chat again if you missed it. So there's that presentation. You can grab that. It's basically this presentation if you want to follow along or look at it later, or if you're watching this recording. All right, there's different documentation on getting ready for Service Desk. We're going to cover a couple of things. There's getting started, but there's also the prep. So we're going to go run through the getting started real quick. We're going to go through a few things. We're going to then go to the prep, because getting started you might have done, but if you jump in too soon, you have to go back to the prep in order to complete it properly. Teams, users, what they're using, and so forth. So we're going to cover a few of those. There is a link to the ZSD customization cookbook if you have different scenarios or different configurations for your service desk. You can then look through this cookbook and find the way to customize those. Basically, it's a run of TIDs and community articles for different system configuration options, branding, and scenarios. Also some troubleshooting utilities. But the cookbook is quite valuable, as well as the upgrade to the cookbook, which upgrade cookbook gets you to 8.3x. Okay, being able to get up some reminders, some downloads, and so forth. Give me a second, I got a cough. Okay, thank you. Okay, so there's again how-to videos we talked about and community ideas. So there's plenty of things there to get you going, almost too much. So today we're going to go through a little more systematic way. If you have ZenWorks Service Desk or thinking about Service Desk, downloaded the trial or something, at least we want to get you started as quick as possible to be able to navigate through this, because there are some tricky parts of Service Desk that makes it hard to get around. Okay. For the install, there's a couple of versions. If you have the trial version, you'll get a 60-day eval of the advanced ITIL version. Okay. And then once that 60 days is up, it cuts you off. You can't, it won't function until you put a license in. And that could be your ZCM 2 Tech license, which is free, or it could be a standard license with as many as you need, and then, or your advanced license. Another thing is if you have ZenWorks Service Desk Suite, you have standard for all your technicians automatically. Okay, so that's a few points in there that are kind of valuable that you may not be aware of. Some of the components are, it's an appliance only. The databases can be embedded or external, so depending on how big or how large, you can have a data that use the internal database, which is Postgres. And you may say, I'm not a database person. We try to give you all of those database things as well in the troubleshooting and so forth. We have documentation on how to get around in that, or what utilities to use to be able to attach to that database to make it easy for you. Email system, it's required. You got to have some type of an email system so that tickets go. That's the form of communication for ZenWorks Service Desk is email. Incoming and outgoing server. Those get all configured. You use your existing. I've even used some that are out on the web that are hosting. You could use that as well. And then user sources. Your user sources can be internal to Service Desk itself. You can manually add those users, or you can connect to your eDirectory or Active Directory, and those in Azure AD even. Okay, so those are available to you. Then you need to know the ticketing type. You know, what is your knowledge transfer? Or is it self-help? Or do you need knowledge-based articles? What are your outages and alerts? So the install we'll go through that a little bit, but and then the ZSD upgrade, you have an existing and going to the next, right? Or you're a little bit behind and you need to jump to the latest release, right? Now you could jump 2 versions at a time. I do have a screenshot for this. Let me put this up there, and we'll just do this. This is what we'll do. Go over here. We can close this pane. All right. Let's do this. Okay. So introduction, here's your standard edition here. These are the things you get within that. And then Service Desk for ITIL or Advanced gives you the additional finance, release, and service catalogs and portfolio, those types of things, right? It is based on 10 ITIL processes, which is workflows, which makes it quite flexible in doing things you want it to do. It will take care of them. Integrating with ZenWorks provides cost-effective, consistent, and unified experience to end users. The one thing about the ITIL process, don't get overwhelmed by the ITIL processes. You don't have to be an ITIL master to run Service Desk. Just know that it uses workflows, which automates for you. It is on a small footprint, 2 core, 4 gigabytes, 80 technicians, leading healthcare services provider in UK. It has, it's quite efficient. Okay. We're going to go to the next slide, which is some of your service buying options. Okay, we're covering these so that you can see where you kind of sit with this. As I said, the evaluation trial is 60-day trial, full ITIL version. You can get subscriptions, perpetual or maintenance. It's licensed per user, or the 2-version license. Okay. Standard edition, which is incident and service with basic CMDB and knowledge base. So you still get the knowledge base, the store, and so forth. Again, every ZCM customer with existing maintenance receives 2 free licenses. It does apply to ZENworks Open Workgroup Suite if you do have that product. And then ZENworks Service Desk Standard Edition is included in the ZENworks Suite to support all suite users, as I mentioned. So you're good. Users, and in Service Desk, users are actually the technicians, the supervisors, not the customers, okay? Because the users of the system are typically the technicians. Customers only submit the tickets, all right? So when you see users for Service Desk, that's translated to the technicians pretty much. Could be partners, those types of things. Discounted subscription add-on. If you do have the ZENworks Suite license and you wanted to go from standard edition to full, you can get an upgrade, an add-on license for that. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you was mainly this. This is where we were. Depending on what version you currently sit with your, if you're doing an upgrade, not so much an install, but an upgrade, you would want to be able to upgrade to the latest. You could then, the N+2 would be, let's say you're at 8.0, you can then go to 8.2, then 8.3. You don't have to do 8.1. If you're at 7.5, you can go 8.1, then 8.3. Okay. Then you do the online update for the minor versions. 8.3.1 is an online update. So there are some conditional, there's a side-by-side, and then there's an in place, which is online updates. Okay, so that helps us. That helps you quickly upgrade for the minor releases. It's real quick. But preparing for the side-by-side upgrade, you'll obviously need to schedule some downtime. You want to back up the appliance as well as the database, right? You want to do the whole system at the same time. There is a prereq RPM that's, let's say you're at 8.10 and you want to go to 8.3.1. So you're going to have to do a side-by-side to get to 8.3.0. So there's a prereq you run on 8.10 in order to prep it for the upgrade, right? And this is all in the documentation, but just to give you an overview, you'd run the prereq, you'd shut down 8.1, you'd then copy the VM disk2 to the 8.3.0 VM. Then when you reboot, it will see and recognize that you have an additional disk that has Service Desk on it, and then it will go ahead and start the upgrade there. Again, there's more details, but you need to make sure you get that prereq done prior to shutting down your older VM. And then you'd want to go to the online updates to finish it up with 8.3.1. Fairly quick process. It's pretty streamlined, and you guys have helped us streamline that over the years, so we appreciate that. Preparing for ZSD online update or upgrade would be obviously in place. You'd want to schedule downtime, or if it's included in this, obviously include the downtime. Not much downtime for the online updates. They're like minutes as opposed to an hour for the side-by-side. Okay, hour, 2 hours. So I when I was in support, I would say 2 hours per bump. So if I was going to 8.1 to 8.3, I'd say schedule 2 hours and then 30 minutes. So 2 hours and 30 minutes, and you'll probably be done within an hour, depending on how big your database is and those types of things. But it's fairly streamlined. Preparing for, again, for the online updates, you'd want to make sure you have downtime. You'd want to register on the online update channel and apply the online updates, and of course that requires a reboot as well. Remember, the online update isn't just for upgrades. It's also for security updates, which happen regularly every 3 months in the online update channel. So you want to check that. It's like November, February, May, September, something like that. So be aware that that's going on. That gets your security updates for the OS. And the reason between the side-by-side versus the online update is if there's any changes to the OS or upgrades to database, because you may have an internal database that needs to be upgraded, those types of things need some major overhaul and upgrades. So instead of doing them and having some processes going on, it's easier just to fire up another VM and just move the disk over. And it basically inherits the identity. All right. Here's upgrade strategies that we have going from one to the next. Again, remember the N+2, so you don't have to go through each one of these steps. You can go directly from 7.5 to 8.1 to 8.3 if you're back at 7.5. Okay, so those should be helpful to you to understand that a little bit better. We were, prior to 7.5, we were on Windows and Linux. We actually had an install for Windows and Linux and an appliance. And since then, we've streamlined it just down to appliance, which makes things much nicer and streamlined for all processes. And then you can find this in the upgrade cookbooks that are out there, but I snagged these off of them just to show you what's out there. You have the system requirement methods. You have the server OS. You know, what is our OS when we upgrade? You know, what is really happening behind the scenes under the hood, right? Also, what is going on for MS SQL? What's supported? So you can see there's a Postgres 9.6 and then 13.5. So if you're using the internal database, this obviously was a side-by-side upgrade because we had an upgrade to the database. Okay, that's just one example. And then the hypervisor started supporting hypervisors and different hypervisors, Microsoft and the Citrix Zen server and so forth. And then the RAM and disk. You can see after 7.5 we started growing that to 40 gigs, and we now have 2 cores. So we built that up over time, and it's evolved. And since it's evolved over time, there are different paths for some of your things. If you have a configuration that's on 7.3, you may find the memory config or the default port settings or session timeouts in different locations. So these are listed all on this page so that you can easily upgrade and manage that as you go along, because you do want to back some of those up. And again, if you follow the documentation very specifically, or follow either the documentation or videos that are out there, it'll be very helpful to you. Okay. Well, that closes that down. So we did the install. We talked a little bit about the install, you know, understanding the ticket type. Are we just doing service requests? Are we doing incidents? Remember, service request is like taking your car in for service. It's a request to have something done. Incident is break fix. I got something broke. I'm taking it down to the mechanic, right? So those are the differences. Break fix is an incident because it's an incident that failed. Service request is I'm requesting service. There's other ticket types like problem and change, and we'll go over some of those too. Okay. So ZSD prep, I told you we are going to cover install, online updates, and updates real quick. Pretty generic stuff, meaning it's pretty consistent all the way through. Now, depending on your environment, how do we set up service desk? What's the prep we need to do for service desk? And some of those things are pretty detailed, and we'd want to be able to go to the ZENworks service desk getting started, because it has different things like user roles. We've covered the system requirements, we've covered deploying or upgrading. Now we're going to user roles. And so this is my what, why, how. Who, what, why, how page, right? Who is the customer? Who do we have in service desk? We have customers in service desk. We have technicians or users. We have supervisors, managers, partners, and finance. All right, so those are included in service desk depending on how you want to configure this. You also have user teams, which involves escalation layers. Okay, so if you have user teams, it's an incident team. You have break fix people. It's a service request team. It may be the motor pool. They're the people changing the oils and the tires, right? Those types of teams have to be set up. If you set them up ahead of time, it really, really, really helps. And I do have a diagram of, where is it here? Here we go. This is just a quick diagram or spreadsheet that I threw together to be able to do that. You have your name of the user, your who, right? Now, what is their role? Do they have customer, technician, supervisor, administrator, manager, finance partner? And then there are some other roles in Service Desk itself, the store role and the delegate role. And we can cover those on a different ZENcast. We've covered them in the past, but those are other roles that aren't configured so much in Active Directory or your user source. We also have, so then you have the operation processes. Is it a request, a service request? Is it an incident? Is it a problem? Now, problem means multiple incidences have been placed on the same thing. It will automatically create a problem if you have certain keywords, certain percentage, certain things line up. You can make a problem appear. So then you have a problem ticket. You close out the problem. All the other tickets get resolved as well. So you have operational processes, and you have change and release and deployment. These are when you're using the advanced version. And then you have your service level and your configuration and your knowledge. And we'll cover these in the certain steps as we go through upgrading and looking at these in Service Desk. But these are internal processes. What are the levels that it's going to escalate? What's the configuration for the items? Do you have people inputting items? Can they put in their own? Do you import them? So forth. And then knowledge base. Who can do what to knowledge base articles and so forth. Okay. Then very important is the teams, different default teams, and then escalation. All right, you see it growing. So you have a team. Now within that team, who's your first layer and who's the second layer, who's the third layer? Okay, so you have layers or levels. And then you have skill sets. And the skill sets are nice because, why isn't that showing? Let me move this down. Oh, it didn't show. This is good for partners. Okay. And, or technicians that have specialized. You have a particular fuser issue on a printer. Well, your technicians may not need, you may need to call somebody in for that so it can go to a partner, right? So if it's labeled that in the ticket, you can have them go directly to your partners who are doing that. Maybe you're outsourcing them, or the technician in-sourced technicians that can do that. All right, so that's just a small spreadsheet, and I did put it in the chat earlier. I can put that link in there again. It's a matrix, getting started matrix. All right, so there it is there. This is critical. Doing this ahead of time makes it much easier to configure Service Desk. All right. Let's go to Service Desk. And we're going to log in. And we'll look at this. Now, the first page as a supervisor you come to is a getting started, which is very, very helpful. All right. Connect to ZENworks if you're using importing some LDAP devices, right? Configure licenses. You can see these two are done. Configure email. This one is not done on the system, but there's other things you can do as well. You can configure roles and processes, which takes you directly to those pages. And I'm not going to click on, I'll click on it this way. So it takes you directly to the users and the processes. So you can see the processes column here. All right. SLAs and teams, ZENworks store. So this is very valuable when you're setting it up or going back to it. Configure privileges will take you directly to the privileges page for the setup. And it should be going over here. Privileges, set up privileges. Okay, and that's where you can set the privileges for users, customers, requests in the system itself. All right. And then of course customizing. Okay. So, and there are some demos in here. So those are good. If we look at 87, we go to getting started, you can see these are done. Okay. All right, so some of the things that I want to make sure that you're viewing, get started. We can see we have just 3 incidents in here. We don't have any service requests listed or anything. So let's go over to setup, and we're going to go to setup. Oh, let's first go to the user, sorry, user. If we go to, for instance, we're on customers, let's go to users. So you have these different things. In the spreadsheet, I had operational processes. I had internal processes. Let's go a little bit bigger. Knowledge, configuration, and so forth, right? So notice that Nancy Jonas actually, her team, she doesn't have a team. I'm trying to see what she is. She's incident. Oh, she's a partner only. You can see she's a partner. All right, so she's configured as a partner, and she can get those break fix incidents. All right. Now, if the partner did services also for regular maintenance or something, you'd select this for her. Okay. One thing I'm going to go full screen. One thing I want to make sure you're aware of is if we, let's say, go to teams, you see we have a default incident team, a default store team, and an unknown. And we want to create a new team for service desk or service requests, but it's not in the list. Well, Paul, you said that the standard version, which this one is, actually both versions have incident and service requests in them. Why isn't it listed? Well, this is where that prep comes in handy. Whereas if you did the prep, you would automatically go over to the user, and let's say the user is Clark Kent, and give him service request, right? And we'll save. Now if we go back to teams, we can now create a team for service requests because somebody has that role for that process. And this was probably the hardest thing for me to understand going into service desk way back when I was a customer, is there things have to be set up in a unique way in order for you to actually see those processes. It won't reveal those just automatically because then there's nobody to take those tickets, right? So you need to make sure that you have that process available for somebody to do. Default service request. All right, you have a team lead. See, I don't have any teams in there yet, so let's go Kent. Okay, so Kent is now team lead. All right, incoming email. Digital air, email display name is Clark Kent. Customer notification, so if we do have customer as a customer, so this particular, if you're notifying customers through this team, do you want to do email, SMS, or customer defined? And typically it's email, so it's pretty much set on. Okay. So now if we did next, notice there aren't any available managers right now. We need to select what is this for. This is for a service request workflow. All right, this is that it'll process I was talking about. It'll automatically route these tickets this way. We do next. Service, we'll just leave this as default. And then here is the service request workflow. So depending, this just shows you all the different states for the service request workflow. And we'll get to the workflow in just a sec. We'll look at that particular workflow. Layer 2, default is 1, and we go saved, done. Okay, so now we have a service request, default service request, and you can see the incoming email, the different settings here. So if we go back to users, so we weren't able to create, I'm sorry, let's go back to setup. So we weren't able to create, go to users here, a service request. Now you can see a default service request is one of his teams, okay? And he has both technician and customer as a role. So you can see here, customer and technician. Now these come in, since we have LDAP configured. If you have LDAP, eDirectory, Azure AD, these come in from those particular configurations. So let's go over there and look at our LDAP configuration for user sources. Let me go here. And you could see here, if we look at, we go back here and we go to our setup, our user sources, we can see we're digital air, and we have these particular roles: ZSD, ITIL administrators, supervisors, technicians. These are groups in our service request, in our directory, user directory, to route people in. So if we go to here and we go to ZSD ITIL, we can then we can see that Clark Kent is in here. Okay. If we want to make Clark Kent an administrator, we can easily add him. If we apply this, since it's pulling from those particular sources, we could then do a sync. And in a minute, because it's a fairly small system, we should have a sync done. There we go. Okay, we're good. It's taken care of. Let's go done. Now if we go back over to our users, Clark Kent, you'll see that he's customer, administrator, and technician. Okay, so that's how those flow in. But you can create your own users if you're starting small and you just want to kick it around. You don't want to use a user source right away. You can add users on their own. Okay. All right. So again, very important to do those. Here's some getting started resources. I'm going to put in the chat real quick. All right, it's a PDF of that presentation I showed just a minute ago. So let's go here and see. Now we have what? You have users in, excuse me. You have users in, but now what are we placing the call for? On what type of device, right? Let me turn that off. So that includes items, categories, item types, and item names. Okay, these can be imported on their own. Let's go full screen. So what are we doing? It's configuration. All right, you can create new ones, and you tell what team, right? And again, if I didn't create that service, somebody with the service request role, this team would not show up. All right, so you can easily see the different, you can create your own if you wanted to, and you could tell it different things as far as what team, what the criticality is, what the service level is, that type of thing. If we do a type, we can, okay, so let's do, let's just say we have a Dell 5450 and we're going to say it's a laptop. It isn't, but let's say it's, oh. All right, and then we'll say it's a laptop. So you can see that it's arrived, moderate, these are defaults, right? You can have warranties in there. You can have it say, hey, warranty's almost up. Do you want to renew it? Those types of things. That's some of the workflow we talked about. And you could also say who owns it. Who's the customer of that particular? We could then say Clark Kent because he is a customer. Okay, Clark Kent is in here. We're not going to have it store capable, and the method of notification is email again. We'll just do email because it's easy. Does it have an item? Does the item have an owner? Not sure. Let's say it's Roadrunner. And we'll select him. All right, next. All right, now we put in some custom details too. So you can have, what's the RAM, what's the CPU type. You can go through all of these and examine what platform, what OS version, Windows. I would just say 2008, because those are in the system. It'll select what's in the system, or you can add your own. Machine type, it's a workstation. Device type, it's managed. Maybe just use ZENworks Service Desk. So you can have all these different type of details for this particular item, right? So now we have the 5450 in there. We might want to say and go in and say it's deployed. But there's other things. You could say it's out for repair, which stops processes. So remember your SLAs ticketing is time. Do you want the SLA to be ticking when it's out for repair? Probably, because you need to check back on it. But if you're waiting for customer feedback on one of your workflows, you may not want it the time ticking. All right. So now you have your items, and let's go over to the other one, and you'll see here that we have a bunch of configurations, and you can see there's ZENworks stuff in here. And then you have network infrastructure. You can see there's SLAs, loan devices. Okay. So this one is a little more populated than the other one. All right. So again, what? And also when you're doing your manual configuration or your import, it has a set of default what's, categories, and then types. If we look at the other one, you could see categories. We have a couple others. We have network access services, network infrastructure. We have types. We have more than just two. We have a car. We have motorcycle for the motor pool, off-road, right? And then we have items in here that are more cars and those types of things. So you do have to configure your category, then type, then item. And you could also do AMI imports and ZENworks imports. So getting those in is very important. Making sure those categories set up before types, before items. Because you can't put in an item without labeling it with a type or a category. All right. Finally, why? The workflow. Let's get to the workflow. Let's go full screen, service, workflows. So we have an incident workflow, and if we look at the life cycle or the workflow itself, we could see that this is the workflow. Now the arrows sometimes pass through, or they're not quite as viewable in this view, but these are very accurate down here. So you could see that we have, when it's open, we have pending and then open. And even if you hover over it, gives you much better look at what's going on. What are your prior states coming into open, and what are your next states that open will allow? Once you get to open, what can you do next? And if you select on open, this is where all the settings are. And here we could see the state is open, active state yes, and then it's coming from a close restored because maybe you want to reopen. It's on hold. You need to client action pending approval. You may want to get it back to open or pending. But afterwards, you can cancel, close, resolved, close, restored. You can put it back on hold because you're waiting for client action. So these are the things that you can easily put back and forth as a state. If the state exists down here, you can add it. Okay, you can also see which is an entry workflow or an exit workflow. All right. So that's how the ticket gets through the system, is through workflows. But you may want to have things like approvals, waiting for manager approval. It's a service request for a new laptop. You need to make sure budget is taken care of. You don't just issue those on demand, so the manager needs to approve it. Then you have dynamic forms, getting more details. And we've had other instances where we've had ZENcast on dynamic forms only and quick calls only. So you could look at those. But basically, when you have an incident and a customer goes to the customer portal and they need to place a call, right? This one is not set up to have calls. Let's go over to this one. And they need to place a call here. What do you want to ask them, right? So, and you can define those questions through quick calls, and you can define them through dynamic forms. Okay. And if we had, this one's up. This one has a better view. The nice thing about this is, one thing, let me go back to Teams. You could set up Teams in the same Azure AD directory, other set of Teams for your test system. So it won't actually have the same users that's in your production ZSD system. So that's a nice thing about it. They would have the same login, but you could separate them out. So if again we go to our users, I'm sorry, were we on workflows? Manual, dynamic, quick calls. Yeah, so if we go to our customer and we go to new request, you can see down here we have some quick calls here. Even if you don't use a quick call, or I should say, if you use a quick call, you have added questions. So delegate add, see how it adds start, date, time. You can make dynamic forms. And we've gone through that before, but that'll get you, when the customer is placing a call, you can ask those questions that you would if you were on the phone, and it would automatically put those in. All right. For instance, printer issue, is it a laser or is it an inkjet? Okay. Is it paper jamming? Oh, which tray? Okay. So it's a dynamic form using a quick call. So that's always good. So you have the who, you have the what are you placing it on, why you're placing it on it, so you fill out the tickets, and then how, what ticket type. Remember, incident and service requests is different than are different between each other. One is break fix, the other is for service. But you also have knowledge base, being able to go to self-help, and you have knowledge base for changing passwords. You have the store. Maybe you need to order a laptop. You could start that process by going to PC laptop and saying you need one. Okay, there's a line manager there if you need it, and you could send a request in. It'll automatically ask for approval now. All right, the customer has not even talked to the help desk at all. So the workflows are an essential part in having that prep. This prep right here, taken care of ahead of time, really helps facilitate getting those questions, the right questions, answered to the technician that needs to take care of the problem. Okay, and so we talked about types of workflows. If we look at types of workflows. We go here, service workflows. So you can see there's a bunch of different types of workflows. All right. And you could go just to, let's say, incident workflows. See those. So facilities for the HVAC systems. Problem workflows. Okay. So this is really step one before you even install, if you can. But you can install, you can have it sitting there, you can kick it around. But this is the key. The prep is the key. Being able to do the who, what, why, and how. Of course, there's other things like branding and use cases. As I mentioned, there is a one of the, I'm too far out. I don't remember where I put that. Okay, so ideas exchange. The getting the roles defined. And I'm looking for my scenario that I had earlier. Customization cookbook. That's what I'm looking for. This particular cookbook is just a list of TIDs that will help you with system configurations. LDAP user source, domain move. If you're moving from one domain to another, how do you do it? Updating email signatures. Okay. Then there's brandings and settings. How do you change the colors? Maybe your company has a certain policy where any public facing or any facing web page has to have certain colors or fonts and so forth. All right. Customize your login sidebar and so forth. Then scenario settings. Check technician team. I've added some few things like videos here. Here's that delegate role. Here's a dynamic forms. A video just dedicated on how to do in those. Okay. Even report builder. Okay. So some of those things are new videos. We keep evolving this particular document so that it has the latest things that you guys have called in for support on. One of the latest ones was a tech was on vacation routing tickets to supervisor. So we make a TID for it. Well, you may not know it's there or what to search on. We put it in here so that you have a list and you can go through this list to see if any of these pertain to your organization. All right. Those are, this is a really healthy document and it's constantly being updated. So you can see it was updated December 21st. So be aware that this is a key document here along with your regular documentation out there, because expanding components, you can do SSO. Let's go back over to our service desk. I'm looking for the right one. Let's go here. Yeah. Let's go to setup and we'll go to setup. You can see there's SSO configurations, social, key shield, password self-service. Okay. Here's your ZENworks import, connecting to your ZENworks zone. Here's your AMI import. Maybe you have a purchase person. They could put it in a particular format and you can just import this particular, download this template, put them in there, and now you have stock of what you have in stock by importing those. So expanding is very important. And then of course reporting, being able to do reports. And you could send reports daily to your supervisor. You can have a supervisor report that shows technician load. Or you're watching a particular instance on a router, right? Do we get any calls on this particular router? I need to know about it every day. Okay. So those are very powerful ways of just having it automatically take care of it for you and start sending you notifications through scheduled reports. Okay. So those are some of the ZSD configurations, very powerful. I hope that helps you understand on getting started, because if you're listening to this broadcast and you have ZENworks configuration management, you own at least 2 items of ZENworks Service Desk. No sense why you can't use that ticketing. And you may already have a ticketing solution, but maybe there's a new department or a department that needs one. You could throw this up to just try and see if it functions for your environment. Okay. Well, if we look at the schedule, Martin, thanks for joining us. Yeah, Happy New Year, Martin. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. The January schedule we did today, getting started. The 17th, we're going to do upgrade ZCM 2020 Update 3. I got to run it through my lab a few times, make sure I get it right, get the sequence down for you. But we're going to be covering that. And then we did push out the identify old bundles and policies. But there's a few other future requests that are coming down the pike as well. All right. You can always find them out, the schedule out on our channel that has a list of the updates. Where are we? Here. Take this out. This is all of our ZENcasts here. And you could see from beginning to end what we've done. So you could search on different things. If you're interested in that quick call, you could just search on quick, and that's a quick start. Let's go ahead and do quick tips. Maybe that's not a good one because I did it with dynamic forms. Dynamic forms. So there's ZSD dynamic forms. Okay. So be aware that that particular community page is out there as well. These are the versions we're on. These are the versions we're going to. Update 4 is in process. 8.4 Service Desk is in process, and we're looking for the Hybrid Workspaces 2212 with feature set coming soon. These are some of the cool solutions and videos that I mentioned or that have been recently updated so that you have them at your fingertips if they pertain to you. Okay, as well as some cool solutions and TIDs that are recent. There are other live casts. So Robin Redgrave in the UK has Filer, Groupwise Enterprise Messaging, OES, and iPrint. Those are done around this time on the first, second, and fourth Thursday. So the ZENworks one is going to take the third Thursday slot monthly as well. So you have a consistency there on the Thursdays. If you have any of those particular products, it's a similar form to this one, more of a webinar type from people that are actually in the field and working with those customers looking for those requests. So be aware that those are there. We did have some conferences. You can check the links here to see some of those reviews and also those presentations to get more information. And the next ZENcast topic, as mentioned, is upgrading to 2020 Update 3. And I do hope everybody stays safe. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I just want to bid everyone a happy 2023. Feel free to download those resources. We'll also have the resources in the description after this is posted on YouTube. Everybody take care. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope the presentation was useful and you have a great week.